Today I wanted to talk about the tragedies that happened in 2017 in Portugal. Portugal has a moderate climate, but the summers can be quite hot. We don't really have issues with humidity, at least it never goes very high, but it gets really hot and it's dry for the most part. But in 2017 we saw something that is atypical. Basically, we had, out of 12 months, we had 9 months of very hot days, and because we also have a very lush country, we saw some really big fires. Now, to give you some context before I actually talk about the tragedies, the Portuguese government, the current one, started to implement the usual plan of the Socialist Party. And if you saw my previous videos, you already know that the Socialist Party in Portugal is the biggest machine of corruption in this country and is the responsible for pretty much everything that's wrong with Portugal. And the fact that we are one of the poorest countries in Europe, we are one of the most miserable countries in Europe in terms of living conditions, in terms of wages. We have some of the highest taxes despite those low wages. The public services that we pay for with those high taxes, they simply do not work. They all claim that we have one of the best national health system in the world. That's a lie. It simply doesn't work. There's never enough money. Anyway, the socialists are the cause of all the Portuguese problems. But they obviously have an agenda when they get to power, and they started in 2017 to apply that agenda. And that agenda is to spread basically across all areas, all institutions, all companies in the country, and place socialist people or people from the Socialist Party in those companies, in those institutions, in every single place that can or that has the direct access from the government, and that they can simply influence to receive those people. They are not competent, they are not they have absolutely nothing to give to those institutions, to those companies. They are placed there because they are from a political party, specifically the Socialist Party. And in 2017, the Socialists started filling up the civil protection, which is essentially the institution run by the government or run by the state to protect citizens. They are the ones that coordinate actions when there is a tragedy, or actually an emergency, not a tragedy, but an emergency. And they are the ones that coordinate everything among other institutions like the fire department, like the police. You know, in any emergency, they are the forefront. And the government starts to fill up the civil protection with people from the Socialist Party. We are talking about people with a degree in sports or in law. They have no idea what civil protection even is, but they are being placed there. They are replacing people that were fired. Simply, they were fired. People that had years and years of experience. They know the terrain. They know everything. In terms of civil protection in Portugal, but they were fired to be replaced by these socialists. It's what we call jobs for the boys, and I'm sure you heard this term probably in your country as well. So this is the start of what eventually happens, because these people are incompetent. It would be proven that they were incompetent in their work after the tragedies. This is what the government did. And in June 2017, a huge fire occurred in a place called Pedrógão Grande, which is it's in the interior of the country of Portugal. And this fire was so big and so powerful, and Portugal is also a country that has lots of wind, and the winds in that tragic day were quite strong, and of course didn't help. So the fire spread quickly, and 64 people died. No help arrived in time. Eventually, when a report that talked about the situation and did the analysis of all the data available from these emergency services, from civil protection and all that, they essentially proved that the civil protection didn't act as they should. The means on the ground were not coordinated properly, and that obviously resulted in the deaths of 64 people. As you may imagine, this was something that we had never seen in Portugal. We have fires almost every year, of course, but the loss of life was never in these numbers. 64 people is a lot. We have seen 10 people, and usually we are talking about people from the fire department that get injured, and sometimes they die. But 64 civilians was something new. But this did not prevent the Prime Minister, António Costa, who is a scumbag of the Socialist Party. He is essentially a politician for life. He never did anything. He's a complete cockroach. He's the worst that you will ever find in any sort of government. Along with his friend José Sócrates, they are the worst that you can hope for in your country's government. If you ever so desire to have your country destroyed, by all means, come get these pieces of trash from Portugal and take them to your country. So this guy, the country was burning, and he took a vacation. Sometimes it happens that some sort of emergency is happening and the Prime Minister or the President is on vacation, but they interrupt their vacations. This guy, he did not interrupt the vacations. And when the tragedy was confirmed and 64 people died, he basically did all these press conferences, assumed absolutely no responsibility for the failure of the state, and refused to fire the Minister of Internal Affairs, which was a woman, I don't remember her name, that basically did nothing. She did nothing, of course, and of course she was probably part of the replacement of people that actually knew about civil protection with this the list of boys and girls from the Socialist Party to be put in civil protection. But anyway, not only did this scumbag António Costa not accept any sort of responsibilities, two things happened. One was that after the tragedy, he asked for a focus group, and this focus group was, ordered to find out if the tragedies in the fires in June somehow hindered his popularity or the socialist government popularity, which was a shock. Obviously, this is absolute. This guy just shows just how horrible he is. He's not really a person. He is a parasite. He is the absolute worst, as I said, that you may want to see in the government of your country. But he wanted to see if his popularity or the popularity of his government was scratched by the fires and the 64 people that died. The second thing was that this guy, the Prime Minister, and his government, of course, they decided to blame the eucalyptus. Yes, the eucalyptus was the thing to blame for the fires, because Portugal has a big area with eucalyptus. We have many other trees, but the eucalyptus was to blame. Obviously, everyone with a brain knew that the problem in Portugal is not just from this government, but also from every other government in the past, where basically the way that the territory is organized, or should be organized, is not something that's followed. There is a plan to do this, but no one ever follows it because it doesn't interest them. There are lots of lobbies, lots of people paying these politicians not to do anything, and so they don't. They get the money, and the land mass and the forests and all that, they just get completely out of hand and completely not controllable by humans, basically. And that's a problem of many, many years in Portugal, but these idiots in the government, in the current government, and especially this scumbag Antonio Costa, essentially blamed the eucalyptus for the fires in June 2017. They even changed the law to prevent eucalyptus from being planted. But the funny part is that even though this law was passed by the Socialists actually granted more eucalyptus planting than previous governments. So you can see just how corrupt these people are and how they just lie to you every single day. And they try to act righteous, they try to act morally superior, but they are not. They are the worst scum that you will ever find. Anyway, this was June. And given the tragedy and the reports that came after, at least one, after this fire in Pedrógão Grande, that essentially proved all the issues that happened during the tragedy, including one of those civil protection idiots, and I would even add killers as well, but one of these idiots actually removed records from, the civil protection has a system where they record all actions that were done